Welcome to the Produce Moms Podcast, where we believe there is a produce mom in all of us. I'm Lori Taylor, founder and CEO of the Produce Moms. For 10 years, I sold fresh produce to over 300 grocery stores in the U.S. And today, my team and I are fully focused on inspiring people to eat more fruits and vegetables. This show is just one of the ways that we hope to inspire you and your family to eat more produce and live a better life. If you like what you're hearing on the podcast, join our community of almost 40,000 in all 50 states and over 30 countries by visiting theproducemoms.com/subscribe. And be sure to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes. Thanks for being here. Enjoy today's show.
Welcome back, everyone. It's a great day here on the Produce Moms podcast. We have a really special and fun guest here in the office at the Produce Moms. We've been saying he's kind of like the King Spud. We have Frank Muir. He is the president and CEO of the Idaho Potato Commission, and we are going to talk about all things potatoes. I am convinced it's one of everyone's very favorite things to eat. So without further ado, Frank, thank you for being our guest and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Lori. It's great to be with you. Look forward to talking to all the folks who listen to you.
Good. Well, thank you. And we got to start at the top. I mean, you are the president and CEO of the Idaho Potato Commission. What makes Idaho potatoes famous? What makes the potatoes that you represent at IPC, different from the potatoes grown in other regions?
Well, I like to think it's really due to three major reasons, and it really what stands out Idaho potatoes is, first of all, it's the climate. We're a high desert environment here in Idaho, and that creates an environment where there's warm days and cool nights during the growing season, and that makes a potato, a tuber at the time, develop a lot of solids, less moisture, a lot of solids, which is what makes that fluffy texture of an Idaho potato. Second is water. We have a great resource, natural resources of water that comes along what I call the smile of Idaho, which is the Snake River. And if you look on a map of Idaho, you'll see all of our potatoes were grown along the Snake River plain. And so it's this, we provide just the right amount of water, not too much, not too little. And finally, the soil. It's the volcanic, mineral-rich soil. Those three things combine together to create the world-famous Idaho potato. And of course, then it's our marketing, our promotion, the efforts of the Idaho Potato Commission to let people know why Idaho potatoes are truly unique.
Yeah, I was going to call it love, but yes, the marketing.
I like that.
Yeah, it's the love.
I'll simplify it to love.
Yes, the love you can only find in Idaho. But no, I completely agree. And certainly, I mean, gosh, even as a little girl, I was able to identify and connect Idaho and potatoes. And, it's your branding has become so synonymous with the crop, like you've almost decommoditized. And that's really, it's quite impressive. So let's dive a little bit more into that love, that marketing you were talking about. Because, most of our listeners and the majority of our audience here at the Produce Moms is certainly, your everyday consumer, your household. So let's make sure that the folks listening really understand what Idaho Potato Commission means and your role as the president and CEO of that organization. Just share a little bit more about your job and what y'all do.
Well, my role is to lead, to promote, to protect. So what does that mean? We have over 600 potato farmers here in Idaho that they're all independent. And then we have about 30 independent shipper organizations and then a multitude of processors. So there's a lot of folks that are very much involved in the potato business here in Idaho, take it very serious. I think Idaho is known for potatoes more than any other state is known for anything else. Right. And so we really, that's important to our state. We have a very agricultural friendly a government here in Idaho, which is very important. And so my role is to make sure that everyone, not only the U.S., knows about Idaho potatoes, but around the world. And we'll talk about it a little bit later that we are shipping potatoes around the world.
Wow, yeah.
And fresh. And it's not easy to do. So it's kind of fun. But, moms, years ago during the low-carb diet craze, I mean, people were not eating apples. They weren't drinking orange juice. They were not eating potatoes. And I know Dr. Oz recently, he had his own half-hour special saying it's time to end the war on potatoes. come back and realize how nutritious and valuable potatoes are to a family's diet, and they're economic, and kids will actually eat their vegetables. You put a potato on their plate, they'll eat it, and they'll probably slip a couple of little broccoli pieces and maybe some corn, maybe some beans along with it. So it's really a gateway to other vegetables, having a potato on the plate.
It sure is. And nothing goes better with steak, you guys.
That's exactly right.
No, I will say too, Frank, at theproducemoms.com, as we monitor our analytics, we've seen a sizable shift in the interest from the visitors to our website as it relates to our content about potatoes. So I can certainly tell you from, our own proprietary data, we're seeing that trend ourselves. And we really started noticing it about 2 years ago, where people were almost kind of, like this rebirth of the potato. Yeah. It's very exciting. So let's talk a little bit more about the seasonality of potatoes. I agree with you about how, Idaho potatoes are the perfect food item for entertaining because they are delicious. So many people like them. They're nutrient dense, so you can feel good about serving them. And really, when it comes to entertaining, maybe the most important characteristic is they're so affordable. So are they always in season?
We harvest potatoes in Idaho just once a year, and that's a fall harvest. But we've developed very sophisticated storage systems to be able to control humidity, the temperature, to be able to hold those potatoes for about a year. And so they're always in season. It's taken a lot of technology over the years to make sure that we can hold those potatoes and not let them deteriorate. When sometimes moms will go in a grocery store or they'll have potatoes in their pantry and they start seeing those little peepers coming out. And people say, well, are those, what does that mean? And I say, that means that's a potato's way of saying you should have eaten by now. It's natural way because it wants to plant itself. It wants to go into the soil and start growing other potatoes. So it is a natural food. In fact, I should mention to you, the American Heart Association has certified Idaho potatoes as a heart-healthy food.
Wow.
And that took place about 5, 6 years ago. We worked with them to achieve that. And that's important for moms to know. If you're looking for a potato or a food that's high in potassium, good for kids, good for hearts, good for families, the Idaho potato is perfect.
Yeah, I mean, truly one of the most perfect foods for all ages, even. The way they cook up, they can be an ideal food too for, even babies' first foods, whether you're pureeing them or like cooking them soft when the kids are a little bit older and have teeth and can, eat. I have really good memories of serving my babies like boiled potatoes that I cut up into little tiny pieces. They loved them, little finger foods. So, this is really exciting. I also want to ask you too, about the types of potatoes that are grown in Idaho. I know the answer to this, but I'm, a self-proclaimed produce nerd. I think that most people, when they think of the Idaho potato, they think of only the russet potato.
Right.
And so educate all of our listeners, if you don't mind, Frank, on all the potatoes that you grow in Idaho.
Well, Idaho is definitely a one-stop shop state for all potato needs. So we grow about 10 russet varieties. The one that we're most famous for is the russet Burbank. That's the potato known for its dry texture, the kind of mealy texture that just, when you open up for a baked potato, is perfect for that. We have a russet Norcota that's more smooth, evenly a more pretty, I guess you'd say, potato. But we have a lot of other varieties of russet potatoes that are used for processing for French fries, variety of different French fry potatoes. But when folks get really surprised is our other specialty varieties. So we have over 20 specialty varieties that we grow in Idaho, which are your different varieties of blue potatoes, red potatoes. We're now the second largest grower of red potatoes in the country.
Wow.
Second largest grower of yellow potatoes. And then we grow fingerlings, purples, all sorts of varieties of potatoes. So the whole concept is you're not looking for a specific type of potato, but you're looking to make sure that it was grown in Idaho. So if consumers look for the grown in Idaho seal, whether it's a russet variety or a specialty variety, that's their assurance that potato was grown in Idaho.
Mm-hmm.
If the seal is not there, you can be assured it was not grown in Idaho.
Right, right. And gosh, what an iconic mark that is. I'm sure most of our listeners right now are picturing it right now in your heads. That's definitely, in a department where brand recognition is quite low. The Idaho potato is, the recognition of that is the opposite. It's quite high. People know that mark. They know what it means. And thank you, Frank, for helping to reiterate to all of our listeners that, Idaho is that one-stop shop for your potatoes, you guys. It's not just the russet varieties. And how interesting for all of our listeners to learn about the different types of russet potatoes even. So,
right.
Yeah,
right.
Thanks for sharing that. So you previously mentioned about selling the Idaho potatoes, globally. So let's talk a little bit more about that. It's an American phenomenon, everyone, when the whole world is demanding the product, right? So,
right.
Frank, what other countries turn to Idaho for their potatoes?
Well, first, domestically, we ship Idaho potatoes to all 50 states. So we're making sure all folks here in America are covered, getting their Idaho potato needs. 15 years ago, when I first arrived in my current role, we weren't shipping fresh Idaho potatoes anywhere outside of the U.S.
Wow.
That was something I felt we had the opportunity to leverage what I felt was a very worldwide brand.
Yeah.
And I found I've traveled to about 30 countries now, and as soon as I say Idaho, they always say potato, and they always say it with a smile, no matter what language they're speaking. And so we've leveraged that worldwide recognition of Idaho potatoes to now shipping fresh Idaho potatoes to 17 countries.
Oh, I love that.
And that's as far away as, well, thank you.
Yeah,
we're shipping as far away as the Philippines, Singapore, Malaysia, Central America, Taiwan. We're shipping potatoes. I make potato chips to Japan, and we hope to be shipping to South Korea here again shortly. So 17 countries. It's pretty amazing.
That is amazing. And that smile you referenced?
Right.
When you say, that's the love, man, right there.
That is. That's it.
Yeah. No, I love it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about what you all do domestically here in the States. There are so many reasons why that mark, the grown in Idaho, the Idaho potatoes brand name, as well as the logo mark are easily identified by so many consumers and households. And one reason is absolutely your marketing and the different ways that the Idaho Potato Commission is working hard to connect with consumers really across the U.S. One thing that I absolutely love, is the Idaho Potato Truck Tour. When you guys start that, I'm like one of your live viewers on Facebook, watching it roll out. I think it's so fun. And, hopefully this year or on your next tour, I'll be able to actually come and visit the Idaho Potato Truck Tour, because I've only seen it online through Facebook. So I've got to make a point to come see it.
You've got to experience it live, Lori.
Yes, I know. And then big sports fans, my family and I, we live in Indiana. Sports are big. Yeah. So NCAA football is a big deal in my household and many other American households. And everyone knows the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. But tell us a little bit more about what you all do. I know, talk a little bit about the truck tour, maybe the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, and some other things that maybe I don't know about.
That'd be great. So when we hit our 75th anniversary of the Idaho Potato Commission, we were formed in 1937. And to celebrate the 75th anniversary, we wanted to do something very creative. And one of my local agencies here in Boise suggested coming up with creating these bringing these iconic postcards everybody has seen of these giant potatoes in Idaho. And people have always wondered, well, do they grow them that big or not? So they said, what do you think about bringing that to life? I love the idea. And we started putting some pencil to paper and then started figuring out how we could pull this off. And we developed this, what was then a 6-ton Idaho potato, now replaced by a 4-ton fiberglass Idaho potato, so it's a little more roadworthy. And we put it out there for a 1-year tour, and now it's going to be headed out again for its 8th year. So
wow.
it's become so iconic. Every place we've gone, we've been to locations. I think it's now over 60 locations that have over 100,000 visitors there seeing it, and then there's I think over 60 where we've been where there's over I think it's over 100 we've been at 100,000 and over 60 that we've been where there's 300,000 people there.
Wow.
And every event we go to, whether it's the NFL Hall of Fame game parade or the Kentucky Derby parade or Chicago St. Patrick's Day parade or Washington D.C.'s Memorial Day parade, they always want us back again and again and again.
Right.
We kind of steal the show with this potato, and it's just people, they remember where they see the potato for the first time, and we now have super fans that follow the potato. We have a toll-free number.
Like
yeah, they
groupies?
follow the
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Yeah, yeah. They're with if a truck, because as you know, you can follow the truck online. We actually have a GPS tracker, so you can know exactly where the potato truck is, and they will track the potato down and just we have some individuals who have become, I would call honorary members of our potato team, our tater team, our potato ambassadors.
I love that.
It's part. Another thing that's important too. So is that we do what's called a big helping. It's Idaho Potato supporting local causes nationwide. We go into a market, a city, and we will identify with the local community some cause that's important to them, whether it's a food bank or Meals on Wheels or a Go Red for Women race campaign, or it's in New York one time we helped raise awareness for organ donations, and we will donate $1 for every signature on a placard we leave in the community. And it helps raise awareness. We always get TV media coverage wherever the truck stops. Mm-hmm. And so it raises even more awareness and donations for that cause. And so it's our way of giving back to Americans all the way across the country to say thank you for supporting Idaho Potatoes for over 80 years.
Wow, that's really cool. I didn't realize that. So thank you for sharing. Such a noble way to get out and connect and really form that community around your brand, and just excellent work. Keep it up.
Well, thank you. We've been to 48 states multiple times. We're still trying to get to Hawaii and Alaska.
With the big spud.
We're the big spud. Yeah, we teased it. We had an event out in San Diego with the U.S. Navy. We teased them with a photo. We put a photo of the truck on a carrier. So we have a suggestion how we can get the truck to Hawaii if you'd help us out.
I love that. Well, you know what? That would be. I'll keep my eye on the GPS, and when you make it to Hawaii, I'll hop on a plane.
You'll join us there. That's great.
Oh man, that's wonderful. So Frank, at the top of the show, we talked a little bit about how the consumption patterns. There's really been this shift, and I'm not sure if you know this about my background, but I actually worked in the supply chain for 10 years.
Oh.
Yeah, selling fresh produce to over 300 grocery stores across the United States. That was, from 2005 to 2015, I was at the sales desk. And so I certainly have an awareness of the era when, potatoes were not they were not necessarily the star of the plate the way that they are coming to be. It
lost their shine.
Yeah. So I remember those days. I remember them well, and I have a lot of pride and excitement as I look at the new consumer trends and data that points to potatoes, rising in popularity. I definitely think we're just going to see this continue to rise as Americans embrace these plant-forward diets. So, share with us what you all are seeing at the IPC. I mean, what's 2019 look like from your perspective with sales and consumption?
Well, right now, just at retail alone, where our sales are up 5.5% versus a year ago. So we are seeing the return to the Idaho potato. Sometimes I've referred to the Idaho potato as the world's largest multivitamin.
Yeah.
And because you think about it, how it's loaded with all the micronutrients as well as potassium, and it's sodium-free, fat-free, cholesterol-free. And just because it doesn't look as pretty as an avocado, or have its unique image is kale. It's actually something kids will eat, and moms are realizing that it's more important for the children to actually eat the vegetables than to purchase them and they just sit on the plate.
Right.
And what they're beginning to realize, which their moms knew, is the Idaho potato is one of the best foods you can feed your children economically, nutritionally. And we're seeing other diets that were low carb directed to now include potatoes back on those programs. They're recognizing that if you're trying to help people maintain weight or have a fit lifestyle, you've got to have complex carbs, and you have to have potassium for performance food or for performance fitness, and so it makes sense to include the potatoes, and so we've come a long way. I have to give credit for Denise Austin. We worked with Denise, America's favorite fitness guru, for 10 years. And she did an outstanding job communicating to women particularly to come back, put the potato back on the plate. Yeah. You've been missing it. Well, why are you holding back? Because it really is a perfect food for your family.
I remember selling the bins of potatoes that had her picture on them.
Yes.
With her flexing. And I totally agree with you that she was an incredible advocate for, potatoes and all fresh produce, but certainly Idaho potatoes. And I distinctly remember selling those bins to retailers. And
everybody compared their biceps to her bicep on the bin. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So shout out to Denise Austin for sure. I also remember doing all of her workout videos with my mom in the 80s and 90s. So
she's a great lady too. Absolutely tremendous lady.
Yeah, I just saw her and her daughter on one of the, I think maybe Rachel Ray or one of the morning shows, and she.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, her daughter's adorable too. So there you go. Maybe reach back out and get in touch with your daughter. They were quite the dynamic duo together, and Denise Austin today looks the same way she did, of course, 10 years ago on the potato bin. So
same high energy. Her energy is incredible.
Yes, yes, it is. Well, that's really exciting, and I'm like I said earlier, we are absolutely seeing the shift within our own audience in terms of their interest in content and recipes that include potatoes. So I imagine that here in 2019 at the Produce Moms, we're going to, increase our content production to promote potatoes as well. So,
excellent.
And that being said, one of our most successful pieces of content from 2018 was one of our ebooks that we produced with Wada Farms about potatoes being an ideal performance food. And, all of our followers, really the facts that they learned about potatoes, because I do think there was a misconception about the nutritional density of potatoes. And, the facts like potatoes have more potassium than a banana.
Right.
Really well received with our audience. But, since we've got you, the president and CEO of the IPC on the show, I got to ask any other fun facts or jokes or any, great tips about potatoes that you want to share with our listeners today?
Yes, and I think one program that we do, I think your listeners would really appreciate. It's called RODS, and it's Racing for Orphans with Down Syndrome.
Oh my gosh!
We started working with this group a few years ago, and what we've done is, we learned that most orphans around the world, or most children with Down syndrome around the world, are put in orphanages, and sadly, we've also learned that children in that situation, if they're not developed, they don't develop early on. And so a small group of runners, elite runners, approached me with this idea because they knew I was preparing to do my own first marathon, and I appreciated. I'm an athlete and appreciate what potatoes' role in performance is. And they talked to me about creating an organization called Racing for Orphans with Down Syndrome, where everybody that would wear a RODS jersey, they would raise $1,000 to wear that privilege of wearing that jersey. With that money, we're going to help families in the United States to adopt children with Down syndrome from around the world and bring them here to the U.S. And because one of the biggest challenges is finance, of being able to do that. And we have now helped these elite athletes. We now have about 300 elite athletes wearing these jerseys all over the country, running in well over 500 races, marathons, triathlons. And with those funds, 100% goes to helping these families adopt these children with Down syndrome. And we've now brought in 35 children. I think we're getting close to 40 that will have funds for 40 children. And so it's a little program. It's not a lot of money that we put behind it as seed money to help it. But for when moms know that Idaho Potatoes is helping these families bring children in to be adopted, the most high-risk children be adopted, it has an impact. And I think your listeners would want to know that this is another way the Idaho Potato Commission gives back to those people that are really trying to do good out there. Also, give you some fun facts then. So every year we harvest about 13 to 14 billion pounds of potatoes.
Whoa.
That's with a B. So that's enough potatoes, and I'll put it back in the performance food analogy. It's enough potatoes to fill Albertson Stadium, the home of the famous blue turf, end zone to end zone, 1 mile high. Okay, that's a lot of potatoes.
It's a ton of potatoes.
What's that?
That's an unbelievable amount of potatoes, yes.
And another way to look at it is Idaho Potatoes, with that 13 to 14 billion pounds of potatoes, that means we're selling 412 pounds of potatoes every second.
Whoa.
Of every minute, of every hour, of every day, 365 days a year. So folks are using and consuming and coming back to the Idaho potato. And I think you're seeing it in more in athletes today. We have actually we run a special commercial on the Ironman Kona World Championship, for the Ironman World Championship. We also run on a commercial on Boston Marathon and the Amgen Tour of California, which is America's answer to the Tour de France. And so we're getting out there in all these performance areas and reinforcing the potatoes are not only are tasty, but they're good for you.
Right.
And if you're trying to help your children perform in high school athletics, and help them prepare for the future, help them understand that potatoes should be part of their daily diet.
100%. And for all the moms listening, I mean, I was a high school athlete, and I remember almost all of our pregame meals were pastas, and they were donated, by the parents would do a pitch in for them. Really, you guys consider doing an Idaho potato bar. As I'm sitting here listening to Frank and reminiscing on the content that we had, in our ebook that I referenced earlier.
Yes.
That is the perfect, and truthfully, you guys, it's probably going to end up being more affordable for you in addition to more nutrient dense. So definitely keep that in mind, all of you teen moms who are, thinking, how am I going to feed the swim team or the volleyball team or, the football team? Go to Idaho Potatoes, right?
Go to Idaho Potatoes. I'll give you a really simple idea for the moms to be thinking about for doing those marathons. So we just completed the 40th anniversary of the famous Idaho Potato Marathon. Mm-hmm. And we have all families that can participate because they can do the 5K, the 10K, the half marathon, or the marathon. And at the end, we do have an Idaho Potato baked potato bar. Mm. And we bake those potatoes up. You don't need to put them in aluminum foil. There's a misnomer about that. You bake up the potatoes, and then you put them in a cooler. You stack them up in a cooler, and that'll keep them warm. Ah. And then you can bring that cooler to your event, and you have some low-fat sour cream, some salsa, some pepper, black pepper. And the runners, when they finish it, that's the highlight of our race. There's a lot of other stuff going on at the end of our races. But that baked potato bar is just people come from all over the country to race in our race so they can eat a baked potato at the end. So easy way to do it. Much easier than pasta. Yeah,
I agree. And I've entertained with potatoes, made them in advance, and I've never actually thought to put them in a cooler. So I'm so glad you said that. Yes. What a great, easy way. I'm envisioning it now, summertime at the lake and, just bake the potatoes and put them in the cooler and take them right down to the dock. What a great...
They're like coals, they just sit with each other and they just keep each other warm, and you'll pop open the lid and pull out what you need and keep the rest in there warmed up.
Yeah, what a great idea. Thanks for sharing that. So,
You're welcome.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I got to ask, I guess. So you've told us how to entertain with potatoes. How does the president and CEO of the Idaho Potato Commission prefer to eat potatoes? Like, what's your favorite way to eat them, or your favorite recipe, or your favorite memory with them?
Well, I love Idaho potatoes in all sorts of ways, but probably if I had to pick a favorite, it would be with a classic Idaho baked potato. I'd put a little bit of dollop of low-fat sour cream, black olives, some jalapenos for a little bit of heat. I love some grilled chicken on there for a full, complete meal. Mm-hmm. And then I love ground pepper, so lots of ground pepper, and then top it off with salsa. When you do that, you've got a complete meal. You got all your food groups and the high satiety value with that baked potato. And that is really my favorite way to eat an Idaho potato.
Yeah. No, that sounds really good. It's like, I'm thinking that's what's for dinner tonight in my house.
Good.
No, that's great. So, there's, you guys, for all of our listeners today, there are so many recipes available on the Idaho Potato Commission website. So, Frank, tell our listeners where they can go for inspiration just like this, where they'll open up their computer and be like, I want this and that and this and that. Everything's for dinner tonight, and it's all Idaho potatoes. So what's the website?
So you go to idahopotato.com, and there you'll see over 700 recipes, and it'll be categories. You can look around. We also have hundreds of videos, some very clever videos to show you how to make some fun recipes. And including to those videos, we've got one video that has over 12 million views.
Wow.
That's how to peel an Idaho potato without a potato peeler. And that was done by Dawn Wells, who played Mary Ann in Gilligan's Island years ago.
Wow.
And she did this video with us some years ago, and it keeps out there, and it's a great video to see how to peel a potato without a potato peeler. It's pretty fun, and you can do it at home. And we have a lot of life hack videos, which are shortcuts and how to use potatoes to do things such as remove a broken light bulb in a light socket, right, or remove baggy eyes under your eyes. I mean, potatoes can do all sorts of things. So we have lots of videos to have folks can have fun watching.
Ooh, I can't wait to check it out. I hope, is the cooler on there? Do you guys have a video yet telling people?
No, I need to add that myself, actually.
You do need to get that on there, because I'm truly still mind blown about that. So, oh man. Well, Frank, I have really enjoyed this conversation and my talk with you today on the podcast. So, tons of gratitude for me, everyone at the Produce Moms, all of our fans and followers for the work that you all are doing at Idaho Potato Commission. I am truly inspired by the work that you're doing with rods. Look forward to, kind of diving in and learning more about that organization and what we can do at the Produce Moms to help amplify and tell the story about, hey, moms everywhere, with every potato that you're buying, you're supporting this kind of goodwill. Truly a remarkable work that matters the most. That's the kind of work that we always try to showcase here on the Produce Moms podcast. So, we have a tradition on the podcast. We throw the mic back to our guests to say the final goodbye and closing remarks for our show. So, Frank, thank you for being here, and please close us out.
Well, Lori, thank you. It's been wonderful to be with you and all those who listen to your podcast. And we started out talking about love, so I'll share at the end to give back some Idaho potato love to all your listeners, and just remind them, always look for the Grown in Idaho seal.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Produce Moms podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a featured guest, just send an email to lori@theproducemoms.com. We know there is a Produce Mom in you because there's a Produce Mom in all of us. Join our community on Facebook and all social platforms. Help us change the way America eats. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.